Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer. Today, we're tracing the absolutely fascinating evolution of how we get managed at work. We're going all the way from ancient philosophies right up to modern AI. Welcome to the explainer. We're taking a deep, really critical look at the systems that dictate our daily grind.
But before we really get going, I want you to ask yourself something. Who is actually managing your workday right now? Is it a real person sitting in a corner office somewhere, or is it just an invisible line of code running on a distant server? It's a huge question, right? It literally defines the modern workplace. And to understand how we got here, we've got to look back at how work itself has been viewed and managed throughout human history.
So here is our roadmap for today. 1. Origins of labor and leisure. 2. The industrial 9-to-5 paradigm. 3. Taylorism and scientific management. 4. The rise of algorithmic bosses. 5. Taylorism versus algorithmic management. And finally, 6. Reclaiming autonomy and flexibility. Now, we are covering a massive timeline today. We're bridging ancient cultural structures right up to our hyper-connected digital economy. It's a fundamental shift in human history. We're looking at how early societies viewed physical effort, the birth of the 40-hour workweek, and how that evolved into the gig economy of the 21st century. To really understand our relationship with work, we have to look at Thorstein Veblen's foundational theory of the leisure class. Veblen points out that in early barbarian cultures, this deep divide emerged. Industry, the actual effort of making things from passive material, was seen as debasing, totally unworthy. On the flip side, the prestigious leisure class focused on what Veblen called exploit. This was basically the highly honorable act of getting other people to do the heavy lifting for you. And this ancient association of labor with subjugation, it completely laid the groundwork for how work would be managed and controlled for centuries. Let's fast forward a bit to the Industrial Revolution. Work had basically become grueling 12 to 16-hour shifts in these massive, dirty factories. The sheer physical toll of this sparked labor activists like Robert Owen to campaign for some humane limits. You've probably heard his famous slogan, 8 hours labor, 8 hours recreation, 8 hours rest. This fundamentally shifted our concept of the workday. It introduced the somewhat radical idea that a human being actually requires a balance of rest and recreation just to survive the demands of industrial labor. All of this activism eventually led to a massive structural shift. In 1938, the U.S. passed the Fair Labor Standards Act, which formally locked in the 40-hour workweek and the whole 9-to-5 schedule. Now, at the time, this was a massive win for workers. It capped exploitation while prioritizing efficiency for factories and early offices. But the catch is, it established this highly rigid schedule built for localized, in-person work. And honestly, it's a structure we are still wrestling with today in our globalized, hyper-digital world. Then, in 1911, Frederick W. Taylor introduces a system known as scientific management, or Taylorism. He essentially wanted to replace intuition with hard data. Taylor completely recast the organization as a finely tuned machine, driven entirely by stopwatches. By conducting these meticulous time and motion studies, he broke complex jobs down into tiny, discrete tasks, claiming to establish one best way to do absolutely everything. It strictly and deliberately separated the planning managers from the executing workers. Industrialists absolutely ate this up. Henry Ford and the Gilbreths applied Taylorism to mass production, using assembly lines to achieve just incredible economic efficiency. But, as you can guess, this relentless efficiency came at a severe human cost. Workers were basically treated like cogs in a machine. This intensely mechanistic approach stripped away all worker autonomy, completely eliminated creativity, and deeply alienated employees. This often led to really high turnover and planted the early seeds of labor union movements, pushing back against this extreme level of control. All right, let's jump to the 21st century and see how this builds into what critics are calling scientific management 2.0. The physical stopwatch? It's gone, entirely replaced by the invisible automated algorithm. Algorithmic management essentially transfers traditional supervisor duties, we're talking scheduling, goal setting, feedback, and even firing, directly to software. Enabled by predictive analytics and digital platforms, companies can now manage widely dispersed labor at a scale that's totally unprecedented. But how does this actually work out in practice? Well, instead of a supervisor physically pacing the factory floor, algorithmic systems operate via what researchers call triangular visibility regimes. Essentially, it's this three-way dynamic blending the app, the customer, and the worker. But the power dynamic is highly, highly unequal.
The employers and the app designers hold absolutely all the cards and all the data. This leaves the workers completely in the dark regarding how their metrics are actually being calculated. The core logic is entirely opaque to them. And this lack of transparency, it has profound psychological effects. In places like Amazon fulfillment centers, workers experience deep algorithmic surveillance through metrics like time off task, which literally quantifies every single idle moment. In the gig economy, workers face unpredictable algorithms and super fragmented communication. The literature clearly links this constant digital nudging and this total lack of human empathy to severe emotional exhaustion, heightened stress, and a really modern form of de-skilling. Section 5. Taylorism versus algorithmic management, the evolution of control. When we contrast these two eras side by side, the evolution of control becomes starkly clear. Both share this intense, efficiency-first logic, but look at the execution. Under Taylorism, control was highly visible, human overseers physically measuring you with stopwatches. Today, it's totally invisible: software, sensors, and real-time tracking. The workers' experience shifts from the physical alienation of assembly lines to the opaque psychological stress of unpredictable AI. The boss isn't yelling at you anymore. The code is just quietly throttling your workflow behind the scenes. And it's fascinating to look at how resistance has adapted to these hidden authorities, because workers aren't entirely powerless here. Instead of traditional factory strikes or manual sabotage, modern workers engage in digital tactical resistance. They play what are known as work games. They might selectively accept tasks, manipulate their location data, or use multiple platforms all at once just to momentarily outsmart the algorithmic constraints and reclaim a tiny slice of their own agency. Section 6. Reclaiming autonomy and flexibility, the future of work. The modern knowledge economy absolutely thrives on creativity and problem solving, and those are qualities that simply cannot survive under strict 9-to-5 models or high-stress algorithmic surveillance. So to break the mold, forward-thinking organizations are really embracing asynchronous communication. With global teams, requiring immediate responses is basically just a recipe for burnout. Instead, companies are building self-service knowledge hubs using AI, allowing workers to actually contribute when they are most productive. We're also seeing a massive shift toward outcome-focused goals over simply clocking hours, with incredibly successful trials of 4-day workweeks proving that fewer, more focused hours can actually yield much greater results. But just having flexibility isn't enough, right? Organizations are actively looking at ways to preserve worker dignity in the face of automated systems. Socio-technical systems theory suggests that technology isn't inherently bad. It's all about how it's designed. We're seeing models that adopt participatory code design. This means actually bringing workers to the table when creating AI tools to establish transparent rating criteria. Policymakers are stepping in as well. The EU Platform Work Directive, for instance, focuses on a worker's right to an explanation for automated decisions. The ultimate goal here is building hybrid models where algorithms handle the data, but humans retain the final empathetic oversight. So I'll leave you with this final crucial thought. As AI continues to rapidly reshape our workday, we face a very distinct choice. Will we allow the future of work to become algorithmic Taylorism on digital steroids, measuring and squeezing every last drop of efficiency out of us? Or will we actively choose to design a flexible, human-centric hybrid model that finally liberates our schedules and reclaims our humanity at work? The technology is here, and it's ready, but the choice of how we actually manage with it, that is entirely up to us.